Welcome everybody, today we're going to be looking at the Hiya King Ghidorah. Released in late 2023, this is Hiya's first take at the King Ghidorah from Godzilla King of the Monsters. Let's strap in and see how this figure fares. Alright, here we are with the Hiya King Ghidorah. Very much anticipated for my collection to add it in. This figure, still trying to find a place to put it in my collection to this day, honestly. Quite the wingspan we got going on. I think I know where I'm going to put it. A little fun story about this figure. So, or I guess this King Ghidorah should say. A few years ago, I had heavily intended to get the SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah. However, that never happened. Just certain things that were going on, I had to go ahead and cancel the pre-order. But years later, I was like, damn, I'd love to have a King Ghidorah 2019 figure in my collection to go ahead and represent that incarnation. Then for that, I saw the actual pictures and I really wasn't impressed. And here we are years later. Here we are in 2024. Happy New Year, by the way. And we have this new King Ghidorah. And I gotta say, this makes it feel like it's worth the wait, and honestly, it's going to be a tough thing. I mean, who knows? We got plenty of figures coming out this year, but this already is my favorite figure, honestly, that I've gotten in a while, and who knows what I'm going to get later in the year. But we're going to go ahead and talk about this figure. We're going to talk about the articulation, paint apps, and various different features that it has. So let's go ahead and get started with the box now. Alright, for starts for the box of this figure, we have a very ginormous box going on right here. Pretty simple. We have a picture of the actual figure of King Ghidorah over here, and then for that we have a promotional image of King Ghidorah, which all of you guys have probably seen before. Then for that we do have two smaller images that are promotional images of the actual figure that have been online. I think the box art is okay, honestly. I think my biggest gripe I have about it, just from a photographer standpoint of view, I can't stand how they have King Ghidorah like out of focus with the wings in the background. And then for that, the rest is kind of in focus. I would prefer to make sure that the whole figure was in focus. But that's just a little nitpick, honestly, from just being very honest about the box. This isn't anything you're going to care about, because you're going to be blown away by the actual figure. And then you'll flip it over to the back, and you have many more images of King Ghidorah with the stands and different stances that you can get King Ghidorah in. And of course, we have our giant barcode, various links, and information. Finally, to top it off, we have a promotional image of King Ghidorah on the top and the bottom. And on each side, left and right, Godzilla King of the Monsters. So let's go ahead and talk about the actual figure. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you as many good views as I can of certain specific spots. There's a lot to take in. I can barely get this big boy in frame, honestly. But one thing that I highly applaud with this figure is there isn't a lot of janky looking eyes. Certain figures, like say maybe like the SH Monster Arts or the NECA, have struggled with this. SH Monster Arts definitely does better. This one right here, I think is just superior though, including when you look at the teeth right here. If you'll notice, you kind of have these underbites going on with the mouth of King Ghidorah, and of course the heads just have a ton of detail. We have some extremely lengthy necks right here that just run all the way down, and these are all on ball joints. I did have this head fall off once, ironically. The Kevin head fell off once when I was putting them together. It's not too hard, you just pop it back in the socket. That's really all you gotta do right there. And then for that, let's move over here to these wings right here. We have all these details around the rim right here. What do you want to call it? I don't know, like the arm part. And then for that, these veins all about on the wings, all different kind of folds that we have. It's just marvelous right here. So let's flip over to the back and take a look at this right here. And once again, many more veins just popping on out, all kinds of texture and detail. That's what we have going on there, right there. So it is got a little bit of thickness to it. These wings I get very weary about. I think that I don't want to test them, but I feel like they might be able to handle a fall, but I don't want to test that theory. This figure, this is one thing about this figure. It can stand on its own. Now, I'll talk more about the accessories. We don't really have any accessories, but one big thing about this figure is it can stand on its own, and you just need to make sure that you can go ahead and figure out the weight distribution. So if you can figure out things with the legs and properly get these legs going, then it shouldn't be an issue. But let's keep on going right here. Now, of course, on the legs right here, more texture. It's kind of that waffle-ish texture, I guess is what I want to call that. And these little spikes right here on the side, which I never noticed about King Ghidorah. Move over to the chest, and you have all these different little textures and details just moving all around. I am impressed, so impressed by this. This King Ghidorah figure, or this design, I should say, is just meant for stuff like this. There's so much going on with it. It's a lot different than the usual King Ghidorah, though it is a very recognizable character, though, for what it's worth. Then for that, we have the back right here, and we're going to go and focus up on this back right here. is what we're going to do. And all these different spikes just going all the way from the back, and then for that to kind of just come together and split into individual heads. And I noticed right here on these heads right here, they have just one set of spikes going, and then for that, it does appear this one up here does have a second set going on. And then for that, you have the main head, which I can't remember the name of this head exactly, but basically two different spikes, and it does get really different. We do have a little bit of a glimpse of a third one. Move over to the tail right here. Once again, we have many more spikes going on. Goes all the way down, two sets, goes all the way down, and we have this kind of like barbish tail with all this different reptilian texture, and then flip it over, and we do have more barbs on the inside or the outer side of the tail, and it does the same over there on the other side as well. So magnificent. Once again, more reptile-like on the bottom. King Ghidorah is looking fantastic. And there we go with the feet, and we do have more detail on the feet, so it's just not completely flat or anything like that. So there is a lot of detail that honestly I am just noticing now by looking at this King Ghidorah. So on the subject of articulation, I want to go ahead and say this for just as a little disclaimer. I'm going to go ahead and just do the heads, and then for that we'll go ahead and do one individual set of necks. What we'll do, since this should all apply all the same for the necks. But the reason why I want to go ahead and do for the heads or the mouth a little different is because of the fact I just want to go ahead and test to see how much these open up right here. And I've kind of went ahead and just, let's say, you can maybe get at least your thumb within each of them. I feel like this one right here needs a little work, so I'm probably going to need to go ahead and heat it up. And then Kevin's, it almost looks like Kevin's jaw is coming off just a little bit. Actually, it looks like on the side, it looks like it's kind of popped off. But his is actually opened up the most. It's kind of ironic that Kevin's head is the one that's had so many issues. However, that could be poetic in a sense. But for the next, let's go ahead and talk about our articulation and where we had these different cuts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So we go all the way up there. We have 10 different cuts. You can go ahead and just move this head. And it is a little bit of something that will give a little bit of a fight. But we do have that cut articulation. I feel like 10 is average. I'll have to check my Mecha King Ghidorah to see if that is what that one had. But when you're moving these around, please be careful. I'd hate for somebody to be trying to twist these around too much and they apply too much pressure to one of these spikes. And then after that, you have one of those spikes go missing in the carpet and it breaks. So basically, that's one thing I do want to go ahead and warn collectors of. It shouldn't be too much of an issue, though. I don't feel like people are going to play around with it too much. Unless you're just one of those people that does love to get the most articulation, you can. Now, for the wings, over here, we can kind of move in and out. Again, I have not heated this up, so there's probably, I can get this more. I don't think you can fully close it, like say on Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, if you remember that scene where King Ghidorah completely closed his wings. I don't think it's meant to be doing anything like that, but this is pretty good though. So we do have a cut here, and then for that there is a little ball joint that this is all rocking on. And then for that you can go ahead and you can rest the wings in place. So we're going to go and talk more about the wings in a moment though. For right now, this is just general articulation. We'll do these separately and I'll show you what you can do with them. Then for that, we'll go ahead and move to the legs though, first of all. So for King Ghidorah's legs, you can go ahead and go back, and that's probably as far as you can get it. Honestly, it is fighting me, so I'm not going to force it. And then for that, it goes right about there. Now you can move these kind of in and out a little bit right there. Very limited with the legs. I feel like this is an average King Ghidorah for articulation. We do have a cut right here, and it can kind of go in and out. And then for that, one more bit of articulation for the feet, and they can kind of just rock around and spin around on their own. For the tail, just like the head, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bits of articulation, and the very end does spin around all the way by itself. There is no bendy wires, so this is all just segmented the way it is, just like the heads, and it's basically just taking a page out of SH Monster Arts with their figures. Not quite like NECA. NECA relied off bendy wires and a combination of also segments, but I feel like segments work the best for Godzilla figures, and that pretty well does it for the base articulation of what you have for this King Ghidorah. It is very limited. SH Monster Arts versus this right here is a lot more cleaner and does spin around and a lot more loose. Hiya has yet to perfect that. However, though, for the most part, they still bring it, and there's certain things this figure does excel over SH Monster Arts. Now for the final part of this for the articulation. Now I went ahead and basically broke up the wings so you can get an idea of how this works right here. You just simply pull them apart, and then after that you can simply plug them back in like so right there. It's pretty easy for the way it works, and I think this is a really awesome way to tool this figure, honestly, and one of the biggest things that I highly applaud about this, because it just helps us just get this out even more and make it look even more menacing. This is already a bulking figure the way it is right here, but I am just a big fan of how they tooled it right here. I don't think SH Monster Arts quite did this. I know their figures had quite a bit of issues with the wings falling out. I remember reading about and seeing, and that was one of the reasons why I never decided to get that repainted version they released with the extra gold. But you can go ahead and just do this, and then for that you can move them all the way down, and it can kind of, let's see if I can do this right here. I'm not going to go all in. I wasn't a big fan of that stance, but you can kind of get King Ghidorah in that crawling stance as he was crawling towards Godzilla or the humans on the ground. So that is really cool to see that actually replicated and that you can do that. Awesome tooling by Hiya's part, and probably one of my favorite things they did with this. Bravo, even though I'm probably going to have it in the normal King Ghidorah, the classic standing wings together, because that's just how I know King Ghidorah. I never was a big fan of this stance that he was walking in, but I still think it's awesome they added this in just for the convenience of the collector. So a quick look at her stands. This is the only accessories included with this action figure. Nothing else. No beams, nothing else. It's the figure itself that you're paying for and the little stands. But we have a left and a right one. I don't feel like these are completely necessary. Oh, and by the way, we do have our center one. And this right here, I just want to go ahead and show you because, I mean, this is how they're set up, but let's go ahead and pull these out and see what happens. And it looks like he's going to fall over just a little bit is what we're going to do right here. Yep, there he goes. But that's how that works right there. But I don't think we necessarily need the stands. It's just a little extra reinforcement. Like, let's say, for example, you know, something happens. You're away, there's a little shake. Let's say you live in an apartment. Somebody shuts a door down below you and it vibrates and upstairs, and this guy just goes over and just plummets, and or worse, completely off the shelf. It's a little extra reinforcement, so it is awesome that it's there, rather than have to go buy your own and brand new stands. And now for the next part of this review, I want to go and talk about something. So what I'm going to do right here is just show you just basically the scale between Godzilla and King Ghidorah. Quite the difference. This is pretty accurate, honestly, versus the movie. If you remember, it's that one scene where they're standing from a distance before they did battle in Antarctica. It looks great, and they size up well. But overall, though, I do want to bring in some other figures and kind of show you how every figure does match up against this King Ghidorah. So let's move along. Mechagodzilla versus King Ghidorah. King Kong versus King Ghidorah. Mecha King Ghidorah versus King Ghidorah. Godzilla 84 versus King Ghidorah. Hedorah versus King Ghidorah. Alright, that concludes my take of the Hiya King Ghidorah. This figure runs from about $109 to $119, a lot cheaper than, say, the SH Monster Arts, which I believe you had to pay up to about $200 plus for that one. Obviously, all these prices don't include the shipping and handling and tax and such, but generally, this is a cheaper figure, and this is probably the one that I'm going to recommend. I have not been too impressed by the SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah. I feel like they have not done a great job, honestly, on the legendary figures. I feel like Mechagodzilla probably was one of their best, but overall, Hiya is just killing it, and I'm really excited to see what it'll do in the future. I can't wait to see a Hiya Godzilla -1, maybe a Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong, and anything from Godzilla vs. Kong, a new Empire is supposed to come out, and of course, you know, any of the Toho releases they got coming on the horizon. That said, thanks for joining me. Let me know what you think of this figure. Has it been worth it? Do you not care for it? Do you love it? There are also other videos in the making that I have in the works, including Jurassic Park as I see it, and then for that, and finally, Godzilla -1, I'll be giving my thoughts on that video once the DVD or Blu-ray 4K does drop, so that'll be due in due time, so keep your eyes peeled for that. You all have a great day, like, subscribe, let me know what you think in the comment section once again.